Okay, we're live.
Okay. Hi, everyone. Assalamu alaikum all. As you can see, today we are going to start our interesting and viable session. First of all, I would like to thank you very much to all our panelists for being here today. As you know, our forum for tonight is titled Trump Plan to Visit Malaysia. How should Malaysians respond? This is a very sensitive and important issue, not just for Malaysian foreign policy, but also for our moral stance in relation to injustice, human rights, and Palestinian struggle. To begin, I would like to invite each of our panelists so you will be understanding their background, and I'm going to introduce them all. First, let's start with Prof. Saul Takahashi. Let me start with you, Prof. Saul. He's someone who has worked extensively with the United Nations and in the field of human rights law. And he's now attached with the University of New York, in New York University in UAE. Next, we will be having our next panelist, which is Prof. Muhammad Nazari. As you all know, Prof. Muhammad Nazari, he's a scholar and emeritus professor at the University of Malaya, and he's the director of Hashim Sani Center for Palestine Studies. Then we have our brother, Mr. Azril Muhammad Amin. He's a legal advocate, deeply involved in international justice initiative, and he is also CEO and president of one of the most attractive and interesting human rights association in Malaysia. Then we have Mr. Tiansho. From our perspective, he is a former parliament member, and he is also the member of the Solidarity for Palestine. He's the Secretary Solidarity of Palestine, and he's the spokesperson for this. So now we are going to start with our brother, Mr. Adri. I'll be asking only a few questions to Brother Azri, then we will be moving to the next, inshallah. So, Brother Azri, ICJ has believed that Israel acts in Gaza amount to the level of genocide. And not only ICJ, many other international associations and international organizations believe the so. So, a case built on policies championship by the Trump administration. How do we reconcile hosting a key architect of this trajectory with Malaysian obligation under the Genocide Convention to prevent such acts?
Okay, thank you, Dr. Muhammad, and also my utmost appreciation to the Hashim Sani Center for Palestine Studies for this kind invitation, Professor Nazari and Professor Saul. It's nice to meet you online. Mr. Tianchua, my old-time friend. I am actually in Tunisia at the moment. We are in the midst of sending off our participants for the global Sumut flotilla. So we have about almost 40 Malaysian participants in this flotilla, and they are currently busy settling some of the last final details before leaving for Gaza. I think regarding the topic, I think let us begin with clarity. In January 2024, the International Court of Justice, ICJ, the world's highest court, has ruled that Israel's actions in Gaza fall within the plausible scope of genocide. It is not speculation, it is not exaggeration. The term that is used by the World Court is plausible genocide. And the court went further. It ordered all states, including Malaysia, to act to prevent such acts and to preserve evidence. And for me, friends, audience, this is not abstract. This is not something which is very highly technical to understand. It is about life and death. As of September 2025, we know that not less than 60,000 Palestinians have been killed, thousands of them children. Over 100,000 have been injured. More than 1,500 health workers have been killed on duty. And also, among the journalists, their lives have not been spared. And hundreds of people have died from starvation, including children, because food and aid were deliberately blocked by the Israelis. Hospitals, schools, refugees camps leveled to the ground. And these are not just numbers. These are lives erased, families shattered, futures stolen. And Trump's role, and here is the uncomfortable truth. These atrocities did not happen in a vacuum. They were enabled politically, diplomatically, and financially. They were by policies, they were able by the policies aggressively championed by the Trump administration. And I want to mention 4 points at least. In 2017, we know and we read from the news that Trump recognized Jerusalem as Israel's capital in clear violation of international law, legitimizing illegal annexation. Number two, he pushed the so-called deal of the century, which effectively endorsed permanent occupation. Number three, he cut hundreds of millions in funding to UNRWA, starving the very refugees who depended on that support for food and education. And finally, at the United Nations, Trump's administration used veto or after veto to shield Israel, even as bombs fell on children. The UN Special Rapporteur, Francisca Albanese, calls this the genocide as colonial erasure, and Trump was its chief architect. So let me ask, how can Malaysia, a state party to the Genocide Convention, a nation with a proud record of solidarity, especially for the Palestinians, host Trump as if he is a normal statesman? The Genocide Convention 1948 doesn't just forbid committing genocide. It creates a positive duty to prevent it. Article 1, for example, it says that states must prevent genocide by all means reasonably available. And this is what Malaysia can reasonably do. What does prevention mean here? It means refusing to launder the reputation of those who made this possible. It means not granting them legitimacy on our soil. Because prevention is not only about stopping bombs, it is also about refusing to normalize the policies and people who cleared the way for those bombs to fall. And let us be honest, hosting Trump would not be neutrality. It would not be diplomacy. It would be complicity. And I want to say it clear. I want to state it clear that hosting Trump is not, in this present situation, any kind of diplomacy. It is, and it would be with complicity. Complicity in erasing the link between policy and atrocity. Complicity in telling the world that you can enable genocide and still be welcome as a guest of honor, as a state guest. And the ICJ has put us all on notice. I mentioned about Article 1, and I also mentioned about the provisional measures that have been issued by the ICJ. Malaysia now, at this juncture, Malaysia has a choice. Either we live up to our obligation to prevent genocide by refusing to legitimize its enablers, or we betray our principles. Trump's policies built the scaffolding of genocide in Gaza. Hosting him is not engagement, it is complicity. It's very clear that it is complicity. Dr. Muhammad, I will stop there.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Brother Azri, for this very, very interesting and very timely reply. So now turning to Prof. Muhammad Nazari, Professor Emeritus Muhammad Nazari. He's a scholar and director of Hashim Sani Center of Palestine Studies, and also he's the chairman of BDS Malaysia. Prof, as someone who's deeply engaged in leading BDS Malaysia, how might Trump visit challenge or reinforce Malaysia's longest-standing pro-Palestine position in foreign policy?
Yeah, thank you very much, Dr. Muhammad, for asking me that question. Actually, it's not very difficult to answer that question, especially after the explanation, the very lengthy explanation by Azril just now, that hosting him is actually complicity. It amounts to complicity. We are being complicit in the genocide of the Palestinian people in Gaza. So when you talk about what does it mean to the Malaysian policy, it's actually completely opposite. It undermines Malaysia's claim to be supporting the Palestinian people completely. By inviting him, we are erasing all the things that we have been saying, been doing, claiming to be a strong supporter of the Palestinian people. So I'm very surprised, to be honest with you, when I heard in the parliament, when the Prime Minister announced that he invited Trump, and Trump actually agreed to come to Malaysia, and he was very happy. But I was, to be honest with you, very stunned. I was stunned. Why? Because before this, Prime Minister, as other Prime Ministers before, have always said that we are solidly behind the Palestinian, and we hate the genocide, we hate the injustice that's happening in Palestine, especially in Gaza. And all this while we are condemning what is happening and the policy of countries that support the genocide. And suddenly we are inviting a leader of a country which is the #1 enabler of the genocide in Gaza. This is the #1 enabler, the main supply of weapons. In fact, you can see now 90% of the weapons are supplied by, maybe 100% now, because Germany said that they are not interested to supply weapons to Israel anymore because it's being used to kill children. So the source of weapons now are almost 100% now from America. There are some also being supplied by companies in the UK. I understand, but nevertheless, we cannot deny that America is the #1 enabler. And also, as explained by Azri just now, they veto the United Nations, the Council's call for ceasefire, etc., etc. So, by right, the last thing you want to do is to invite the leader who is responsible for supplying weapons to Israel. Now, so I still cannot actually cannot fathom, cannot understand. Therefore, the only thing I can only say to recommend to the Malaysian government is, since this is going to undermine everything that we said before about supporting the Palestinians, the best thing to do now is to withdraw the invitation. Just say to Trump that in the light of what is happening in Gaza now, the genocide is continuing. Scores of people are still being killed, including children and women, and you are still supplying weapons to Israelis to kill children. So sadly we have to withdraw our invitation to you. That is the recommendation I would give to the Prime Minister. It's not too late, because it's about more than a month, I think, the date for him to come to Malaysia. So it's not too late to tell him and to make him realize, to make Trump realize that he is actually the main enabler of genocide, of killing of women and children and innocent people in Gaza. So that is what I would say. My comment is that if the invitation is not cancelled, and Malaysia still proceed to invite Trump to come to Malaysia, it will undermine completely what we have been saying so far, that we are solidly behind the Palestinian people in their fight for freedom and justice. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Brother Prophet Nazari. Yes, you are right. And we hope the government would be able to issue apology to Trump visit in the next few days. So next question I'll be turning to Prof. Takahashi. Prof. Takahashi, let me mention, as someone who has worked extensively with the United Nations and in the field of human rights law, and also in the shadow of Gaza, how might other nations in the global south, particularly those who have condemned the genocide, interpret Malaysia hosting Mr. Trump? Could it be seen as betrayal of solidarity that has been so crucial for Palestine in these countries, or merely just as pragmatic diplomacy?
Yes, thank you, and thanks very much for having me here today. How other countries see it, well, first of all, as has already been said, certainly the most principled thing to do would be to rescind this invitation and basically not to invite Donald Trump, who not only has the United States been the key partner in crime in the genocide in Gaza, and lest we forget all the other Israeli atrocities that are taking place in the rest of Palestine. But lest we forget that Donald Trump himself seems to be one of the key architects of this entire Riviera of the Middle East project, which can only be described as sheer insanity. This idea that the Palestinian people, well, Gaza hasn't been lucky for them, so they're just going to have to leave. I was watching this press conference live, and I have to say I got physically sick, like I think a lot of us did. And that they're going to build a Riviera, the Middle East, but for the people of the world, but not for the Palestinians. And of course, there was huge international outcry against that, but this still seems to be going on under the scenes. I mean, just the other day, I believe it was the Washington Post, they published some 36-page booklet that seemed to be sort of building on these ideas, called building foundations and the kind of plans that these people had for Gaza. It was, and as Francesca has said, and as has already been sort of noted, colonial erasure. Nowhere in any of these documents does the Palestinian people figure, except for just people to be got out of the way, just to be paid off so that they can move away. Nowhere does it figure that this is their land. It has been their land for generations and generations, time immemorial, and that they too have the right to self-determination, which has been internationally recognized again and again and again, not only by political bodies like the General Assembly, but also and other UN bodies, but also the International Court of Justice. So, I do always I hesitate to sort of personalize it too much, because it's not just Trump, as we see. It's Biden before him was also a staunch supporter of Israeli genocide, as we've seen, and did absolutely nothing to stop the atrocities that were taking place. Again, it's not just about the president. The American government under their command, and indeed most of the American political elite, seem to remain staunch supporters of what's going on and what the Israelis are doing. So I hesitate to personalize it, but that having been said, it is very clear that Donald Trump is a personal supporter of what's been going on, and also that he leads this administration, so therefore he should take responsibility. So, of course, the most principled thing, for sure, like has already been said, would be to not invite him. Now, should that not happen, and should he come, would this be seen as a slap in the face of Palestinian solidarity by the other countries? Well, it's difficult to say, but it's worthy to recall that Malaysia is one of the founding members of the Hague Group, which is a group of countries which banded together and have agreed, openly to take measures against what is going on and to push forward a just resolution for what's been happening and to call for accountability for these Israeli atrocities. So it does look a little bit, it looks problematic, if not downright hypocritical, to sort of turn around and invite, the key partner in crime. So I think certainly it would open Malaysia up to that kind of criticism. I don't know if other countries have, for example, refrained from inviting Trump or Rubio or these kind of, key figures in the United States because of what's been going on, or if they've, openly stated so. But, if they haven't, so what? Malaysia can be the first one. Malaysia can be the first one to announce, we are not going to host these enablers of Israeli genocide in accordance with our international obligations. This is the least we could do, not host them and treat them like legitimate actors in this. The key thing here is accountability. And I think, the most principled thing certainly would be for the Malaysian government to continue strenuously calling for accountability, and in that line, basically, rescind this invitation for sure.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Prof. Saun. Your international perspective really, especially drawing from United Nations experience, UN experience, help us see this kind of issue, connect Malaysia to broader global struggle for justice. Thank you for this. Let's move to our brother, Mr. Tian Chua. So, brother
Yes.
Tian,
Yes.
from your perspective as a political activist and former parliament member,
Yeah.
and spokesperson for Secretariat Solidarity Palestine, and for your experience as someone who is deeply engaged in solidarity movement beyond demonstration, what immediate tangible action can Malaysian people take during this visit? For instance, could we organize nationwide campaigns to flood international media with letters, or coordinate with BDS movement to launch a new initiative that aimed directly at entities linked to both Trump network and the Israeli war machine?
Yeah. I think, yes, this is certainly an appropriate response if Trump were to visit Malaysia. I think I would like to add 1 or 2 points, which I agree with all the previous speaker. I will go politically, I will go one step further by saying that Trump is not only complicit. There is a possibility that he himself had committed war crime. So I think this is more serious than just being complicit, because what he has done, not only the issues of Palestine, US has been the violator of international law by attacking sovereign countries like Iran, assassinating leaders overseas, and also he's been not only protecting Israel on the policies and UN level, but we can see that in fact US is actively collaborating with Israel to destabilize the global order. I mean, not just in Palestine, and Israel military themselves say without the collaborations of the US defense forces, they will not be able to attack Qatar, for example. So I think this we have to be very clear. Trump is not just Trump. I mean, he might be loudmouth, he might be saying a lot of nasty things, but he's also representing a factor in the international order that basically disturb and violate the rule-based multilateral international order that has been established or people struggling trying to maintain. So back to this ASEAN. ASEAN's formation is very clear. ASEAN is not a regional body like NATO. It is not a defense-based regional body. It is a body that has long-standing on maintaining neutrality, maintaining no nuclear weapons, maintaining that there is regional cooperations to negotiate and avoid war. And ASEAN has very proud records. I mean, even the recent thing, we have conflict, we have territorial differences, but through the multilateral mechanism, we have been able to keep almost half a century of peace and stability for ASEAN. To have someone like Trump coming in, it is totally against the value that we have been cherished for so long. So that's why I said he is the United States, the leaders of the United States, which go totally contradict to our value, do not deserve to receive our red carpet. Therefore, I mean, this is not just about state to state. Malaysian government is not just a government. I think the people of Malaysia must make our voice heard. And it is important, I would say, for welcoming this war criminal, we must mobilize and we must show that Malaysian people reject Trump, not only Trump as a president, but we reject the policies and the approach and the years of exploitation that advocated by these imperialist states. And we must show that the people's voice must be heard. So I would like to say that, yes, we complain about the government, we complain about complicity by the authorities, but the people must vote with their feet. The people must voice out. And I would like to call on all the different political forces, NGOs, civil society, to come together, to organize, and to show that the people's power speak louder than all this small group of elites who trying to manipulate the order for their own economic interests. Lastly, I would like to say that we shouldn't exaggerate the United States economic power in the world now. You know, there have been attempts for the last 3-4 decades or even longer to create an alternative economic corporations that based on mutual beneficial, not basing on the centralized exploitation of the Western industrialized country. And we have seen several regional organizations, the embryo of it is moving. And Malaysia should champion this because we were proponent for South-South cooperation. We are the proponent for Look East policy. We are the proponents of looking into East Asian economic prosperity zone and all sorts of other initiatives. Like we shouldn't look down on ourselves that we really dependent on US economy for survival. So the talk about, it will be harming national interests if we offend US, I think that is no longer the truth. It might be true 50 years ago, but I think it's increasingly that our own economic power, our own market strength will be able to neutralize this, maybe not immediately, but we should move towards that direction. So the issues about rejecting Trump is not just purely an emotional reaction to someone who has been very nasty and exploitative towards a Palestinian but it is also for our own national interest. That's why I want to stress that it is not like for the national interest or for the justice of Palestinian, but it's for ourselves, our own national interest, that we have to start making this initiative that build our own economic strength, break the change of the domination by this warmonger nation, that it is for defending our own sovereignty. Our sovereignty and the Palestinian sovereignty is tied together. So I hope Malaysian people must understand, and we must preserve our dignity by mobilizing against Trump visit and against the bad policies that perpetrated by the United States. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, brother Mr. Chuan. Actually, Mr. Etienne, actually, your answer was very, very passionate and practical view. You just explained everything deeply. So your reflection reminds us how important it is for Malaysia, both practically and socially, to remain consistent in our solidarity. Thank you very much. So now turning to Brother Azrael. Brother Azrael, as a legal advocate who's currently leading the legal team for Nusantara delegation of the Global Sumud Flotilla in Tunisia, and they are heading to Gaza. So my question will be from human rights perspectives. What message would Malaysia be sending both locally and internationally if it officially welcomed Trump?
Yes, Dr. Muhammad, thank you for the question. Again, I think let us ask. I think the most important question that we must ask, the most pertinent question that we must ask, the Malaysians especially, we must ask ourselves, what message would Malaysia send to its people and to the world if it officially welcomed Donald Trump? Yeah. Well, we can see from the local dimension. At home, the message would be devastating for me, for not only for the NGOs, but for the ordinary people who have always been in support not only of Palestine, but the cause of human rights.
I think Azrael's connection is weak, he told us just now, so maybe we lost his connection, Muhammad, Dr. Muhammad.
Yeah. I think maybe the internet. Oh yeah, it's down.
He's back. Okay.
Last night
cut
kita tak dengar.
Disconnected. Sorry, the line is not so stable here.
Yeah.
Okay, it would tell Malaysians that all our solidarity with the Palestine is nothing more than a theater, I mentioned earlier. And I think even the decades of our moral commitment can be discarded for the sake of political spectacle. And for our youth, especially for the youth, for the younger generation who see Palestine as a test of justice, it doesn't set a good example. It would be a betrayal, in fact, for them. For civil society, for us, for activists like me, for human rights activists, we have already carried this struggle in Malaysia for decades, even from the Prime Minister himself. He is known as a champion in the past, as a student, as a youth leader, as a champion for the Palestine. It would show that when power knocks, our principles collapse. Yeah, and this is my biggest worry. And at the international dimension, I think internationally the damage would be even greater. Yeah, Malaysia has been respected as a voice of conscience in the United Nations, in the OIC. We have been very active member. In ASEAN now, we are currently chairing ASEAN. I mean, all of us know how the government works very hard to build the image of ASEAN as a principled, as a neutral, as a moderate middle power. We have been able to say all these years, that we stand with the oppressed, we defend international law. But what happens to that credibility if we roll out the red carpet for Trump? And at this moment, for example, I see very high hopes among the participants of the global Sumut flotilla, especially among the Malaysians. They don't sleep at night thinking, what to expect in the coming days when they start sailing off to the seas, to the waters, and as they approach Gaza, whether they will be deported or they will be detained in the Israeli prisons. This is the kind of very high hopes that us as human rights activists that we have. But what will happen if suddenly we see that Malaysia is welcoming Trump, who is clearly someone who is against the ideals of justice for Palestinians. And it tells the world that Malaysia is selective. Malaysia is willing to call out genocide when it suits us, but embrace it enablers. We embrace Donald Trump as its enablers when convenient, when we want popularity, when talking about economic prosperity. And once that message spreads, our credibility on Palestine and on Rohingya and on other matters, especially on Islamophobia, for example, all of it will be weakened. Yeah. And let me just remind our audience and so my fellow panelists, this is also a reminder for me that what the world is saying right now. Just last week, Volker Turk, the UN Human Rights Chief, he condemned what he called the mass killing of Palestinians and warned of a mounting case before the International Court of Justice, the ICJ. On 1st September 2025, the International Association of Genocide Scholars, the world's foremost academic authority on genocide, declared that Israel's actions meet the legal definition of genocide. This is yet again another proof. It's not the first time, but at least there is a very strong conviction from the International Association of the Genocide Scholars that Israel's actions have met the legal definition of genocide. And when the ICJ, the UN, and the top scholars all point in the same direction, what does it mean if Malaysia embraces Trump? Because we have already ratified the Genocide Convention. It's just that we do not have a domestic law on Genocide Act. But we have ratified as a matter of principle. It means that we are standing, if we continue to decide to host him in November, it means that we are standing on the wrong side of history. That is the point that I wish to emphasize. And now let us just imagine the alternative. Imagine Malaysia saying, no, we will not legitimize this man unless it is to hold him accountable. Imagine us standing firm and declaring our solidarity is real, our principles are not for sale, and we cannot be complicit in genocide denial. That would reinforce actually Malaysia as a principled middle power. And that augurs well with our position as ASEAN chairman now. It would not only reinforce Malaysia as a principled middle power, but it would inspire confidence at home and respect abroad. I mean, this is the time if, let's say, we want to score a point on the international level. And what would the message, if we were to officially welcome them? What would the message be? A message of betrayal, of hypocrisy, of weakness? But what message would refusal or conditional engagement send? At the minimum, if let's say Malaysia wants to talk about conditional engagement, okay, Prime Minister is saying that okay, he can come because we will talk about Palestine on our soil, but still a message of courage, a message that Malaysia still has a backbone. These are the questions that we need to ask ourselves, in order to consider our welcoming of Donald Trump. And finally, perhaps welcoming Trump again, as I have mentioned earlier in my earlier presentation, welcoming Trump tells the world that our solidarity is for sure, and rejecting him proves that Malaysia still stands where it always should, with the oppressed, with the law, with the justice. And we must send the right message, not only to the human rights activists, not only to the UN bodies, not only to the world community actually, but we must send the message right to our own conscience. We want to ask, if we fight for justice, if we fight for human rights, if we have ratified the biggest thing, the Convention Genocide, the Convention of Genocide, then how does it look when we suddenly welcome this enabler of genocide to our shores? Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you, Brother Azrin, for the insightful legal and human rights perspective. You actually have highlighted some critical points about the principles and the accountability that we really set, or Malaysia really set the stage for our discussion further. I'm turning next now to Prof. Emeritus Muhammad Azari. So, Prof, since you are the chairman of BDS Malaysia and the director of Hashim Sani Center for Palestine Studies, if you were advising the Malaysian government, what would be your top 3 recommendation for responding to Trump visit in a way that uphold national dignity and justice for Palestine?
Yeah, thank you for the question. Before I mention about the 3 things I would say to Trump, is as the Prime Minister, if I'm the Prime Minister, of course, I'm not the Prime Minister. Anyway, number 1, I want to remind people that the recent, today's vote at the UNGA, now the US actually rejected the UNGA vote, which talk about the establishment of the Palestinian state. So in other words, even that minimum, which is under international law, which talk about, and they themselves was the architect of the Oslo Accord, talking about the Palestinian state. Now they are rejecting it. Together with Israel, they say, no, we don't want to talk about the possibility of the state of Palestine being formed. That shows how extreme US is in supporting the injustice being committed toward the Palestinians. So we want people to remember that. Even though I am myself is also disappointed with the declaration be supported by the UNGA, because it undermines the Palestinians' rights for resistance, and military resistance is their right for people under occupation. So the declaration which calls for Palestinians to stop the resistance is actually not fair to the Palestinians. But the Americans are taking a completely opposite side, which is not wanting to even consider the possibility of a Palestinian state on their own land. Okay, anyway, the second thing I want to mention is this: we should be, as a country, as the holding the leadership of ASEAN at the moment, we should be focusing on trying to convince ASEAN countries to break relation with Israel, to impose sanctions on Israel now, because some countries in the ASEAN region are still having diplomatic relation with Israel. Countries like Singapore, Thailand, for example, right? Myanmar, Philippines, they all have diplomatic relation with Israel. Even though Israel is committing genocide against the Palestinian people, by now these countries should have terminated their diplomatic and trade relation with Israel, because of the obvious criminality of the state of Israel. So that is what Malaysia should be doing, calling on ASEAN countries to stop being complicit, because when you are having diplomatic relation with Israel, for me, is that you are being complicit, because you are saying that, yeah, you can continue, we recognize you, and we have no intention to break relation with you. That means you are encouraging Israel to continue to commit genocide against the Palestinian people. So Malaysia should be telling them and not be doing otherwise. But by inviting Trump, you are actually now watering down your stance. You are basically saying to the ASEAN countries that because of economic considerations, even though we are talking very, very loudly against Israel and supporting the Palestinian people, but because of economic considerations, which is very important for ASEAN, therefore we are going to invite Trump. That is the message you are giving to the ASEAN countries. So in other words, the ASEAN countries are not going to be motivated to impose sanctions on Israel by this move by Malaysia, because basically we are telling to the ASEAN countries, you can continue your priority of economy over human rights is okay, because that is what we are doing anyway, inviting Trump over for the ASEAN meeting. This is what the message is all about, which is completely unacceptable. So that is something which our leaders should to bear that in mind. And okay, to answer your question, what are the three things I would say? Number one is my recommendation is basically send a letter to the US saying that we regret to inform you, we are going to rescind our invitation. We are withdrawing our invitation because of your complicity in the continuing complicity in the genocide of the Palestinian people. That's number one. Number two is to explain why and draw out all the list, which was that is not very difficult. You can consult Azrael again. Everything is there listed. All the crimes committed by the US, from their veto power, from sanctioning the ICC, right? Even the prosecutor of the ICC, Karim Khan, is now being sanctioned by America because of what? Because of them finding Netanyahu to be charged as a under war crime, and because of that they are sanctioning the prosecutor as well, the ICC judges, and now the US was also imposing sanction on Francisca Albanese for coming up with the report called Economy of Genocide. Can you imagine that? The UN official herself are being sanctioned by the US. So the second thing is to explain to the US all these details, what wrongs you are doing to the Palestinian people by your actions over the last few decades, until now, and it's getting worse now. So that's number two. And number three is actually to call upon the US to start valuing human rights, meaning asking them, consider human rights and listen to your people, because there are many Americans now, especially the youth in America now. I was informed, according to a poll, 60% of the youth, especially among the Democrats, are against Israel now. 60% between 18 and 25. They are completely now behind, or not completely, but 60% majority are saying that Israel is the one that is committing crimes against the Palestinian people. So listen to your people, listen to the judges, listen to the experts on genocide, and act accordingly, uphold justice, and not continue to commit to be complicit in the crime against the genocide against the Palestinian people. So that's number three that I would recommend the Malaysian government say to Trump. The three things which I would recommend the Malaysian Prime Minister to tell Trump in the coming days. And we have many more weeks to do this. Hopefully, he will be able to summon the courage to say this, because as highlighted by Tian Chua just now, that the America as a great power is now it's an illusion, basically, right? People are scared of shadows actually now, because the country, America itself, is now very weak. They are, even now, the tariffs that are imposing on other countries are being attacked by their own people. The American people are saying this Trump is not performing. Number one reason is economy, because price is going up. And one of the factors that is contributing to the inflation is actually the tariffs that Trump is imposing on other countries. So even internally, the country is weak. Of course, we are witnessing the political violence now, this shooting of Charlie Kirk. The political violence that is happening in America is also indicating to us that the country is imploding from inside. It's imploding, becoming weaker and weaker. So we don't have to be worried about this country. We are scared of shadows. We need to summon the courage to start to hold on to principles and do the right thing, as highlighted by Tian Chua and by Azri and by Sao just now. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Professor Zeri. Thank you so much for this very insightful presentation and very insightful answer that actually grounded us with that thoughtful and principled analysis. So I think it's very important to remember Malaysia's long historical commitment to Palestine and how that should shape our response today. Thank you, Professor. Let's move now. My next question, I would like to hear from Mr. Tian.
Yeah.
For many Malaysians, Trump is the main factor that allowed the genocide to continue. Should the primary response to this on the streets, therefore, be one of the mass peaceful rejection to send an unmistakable message to the world that Malaysia is standing with Gaza, not with its enablers?
Well, I think okay. This is why I said the struggle is together. I think a lot of Malaysians may not. They may be very sympathetic to what happened in Gaza, but generally, Malaysian and maybe not unique to Malaysia, people understanding about the geopolitical situation as well as the whole structure of this imperialist economy is people are quite I won't say ignorant, but they are unfamiliar. So we would not expect a lot of people to understand that. Of course, they are sympathized and they understand that Americans are enabling the whole thing happen. But I think that's why I say our mobilization against Trump also is a process for us to educate Malaysian public. First, to understand the value of our own sovereignty. That's why I said, just not talking about Gaza itself, not talking about Palestinian. It's about our own. Secondly, to understand, we must stand on our own foot and enough of this begging and dependency on US as the economic superpower. Thirdly, we have to understand independence by the third world country, by the South country, that it's all tied together. Today, they are pressing on Palestine. They are doing it to the neighbors of Palestine. They are doing it to the entire Middle East. They are doing it to Latin American country who stand out against US. That's why I say Malaysia must set an example, which to me, we will not suffer strong economic consequence. Maybe a little bit, but I think it's not. We can afford to do that. And I agree with other speakers that this is the opportunity to stand up, to show the moral leadership that there's one country, 30 million people, there to stand out in the face of Trump and say, look, you're not doing the right thing. We are not going to have you here, right? Just by, let's put aside all the big thing. Just recently, what do? Just because Francis Albanese say something which is not to the music of the American administration, the old liberal image of US as a country that respect international law, respect freedom of expression, the mask has come down, then they stop them. ICC judge, you don't speak on my tone, I stop them. Palestinian official representative that come have a seat in United Nations being banned from attending it. And this is a long-term treaty. When UN moved to New York, that was a treaty, a commitment that you cannot ban any country. You may dislike North Korea, you may dislike any country, but you cannot stop them from a seat where they can speak to the international community. This is what Trump is doing. This is what this administration is doing. Why should we then turn around by saying, yeah, please come, and we are doing it? So that's why I think we need Malaysians to understand that why we are mobilizing is not just purely for our sympathy for Palestine, but this is also for our national pride. It is also for us to show that we Malaysian are an independent nation. We are not someone that can be easily bullied around. And we also want to take this moral leadership to show to the rest of the southern country that we dare to stand up against an international bully. So, of course, for us to, if we want to see tens of thousands of people on the street to reject Trump, we need a lot of education. We need to put forward whatever we discussed tonight in this podcast to the public so that the lay person understand we are not just purely emotional. We are not just purely want to support Palestine so much so that we sacrifice our national interests. No, that's not true. This is the fate of the Palestinian. The issues that we have is tied deeply with our own interests, and we should not allow someone to trample over us, to step on our head, and then we still smile and say, "Oh, we Asians are very welcoming, and we can do the welcoming thing for someone who is an international war criminal."
Thank you very much, Brother Tian, for addressing that critical question so directly. Your insights on how Malaysians can translate their solidarity into clear, peaceful, and collective action are deeply appreciated, and they give us much more to reflect on it.
Yeah, lastly, we also should say our rejection of Trump is a solidarity with the American people. You know, the American people are fed up with the oppression. They are fed up with this arbitrarily termination of their jobs and arbitrarily destruction of their legal system. You know, arbitrarily, deporting immigrants who have constitutional right guaranteed by the federal constitution of the American that has been just totally violated. And they are fighting back. By thousands and millions of people are fighting back. And they are demonstrating in New York, in Washington, in all over America. So our mobilization is also a solidarity with Palestine, of course, but also is a solidarity with the oppressed American people who have enough of fed up with all this nonsense that put forward by this current regime.
Yes, that's true. Thank you so much. Thank you. So now my next turning question will be moving to Professor Takahashi. Prof. Takahashi, could Malaysia use a Trump visit diplomatically to challenge US policies in the Middle East, or would such a move be symbolic rather than impactful?
Sure, thank you. I mean, if the visit were to go ahead, clearly that's what the Malaysian government should do. I mean, they should challenge Trump's support for Israel. They should challenge all this stuff. You know, I agree with everything that's been said about Trump's policies, not just, you know, in terms of Israel, but you know, everywhere. And they should do that in a forceful manner, and they should do it in a very public way too. That's very important to show the world that they've been doing it. But honestly, you know, will that be effective? Would that be effective? I kind of doubt it. I mean, it's difficult to see, you know, that accomplishing much of anything. You know, I want to sort of touch on what's already been said by pretty much basically everybody, all the other speakers. You know, Israel is a complete rogue state. Israel is committing genocide in plain view of the entire world. And of course, we focus mainly on Palestine, as we should, but Israel is also committing all sorts of other terrible stuff. I mean, they've been violating the sovereignty of, you know, every neighboring country you can imagine, and then some, over the past 2 years. You know, the recent attack on Qatar is just the most recent one. And, you know, the thing is, I really do feel, and this, again, has already been said by some of the other speakers, but we are really witnessing a serious challenge to the international order as a whole. And it's not, it's by Israel mainly, but also by the chief enabler and its partner in crime, by the United States and Donald Trump. It's got to the point where it's not just, we are far beyond the point where Israel and the United States try to justify their actions using bogus arguments of international law. We are even beyond the point where they sort of shrug their shoulders and say, yeah, maybe it wasn't so legal, but it was really necessary, so we felt we really had to do it. No, we're beyond that. We're at a point where these countries, these people, these countries, they go out of their way. They're going out of their way to try to destroy international law as we know it, the international institutions that we have. They're going out of their way to do it just because. I mean, just to sort of thumb their noses at the international community and say, we're doing this just because we want to. One of the big problems, one of the big issues with Israel is that it's the complete lack of accountability, the complete impunity that it has enjoyed up till now, and much of that, of course, is because of the protection of the United States. But it's just like the whole. If you look at Donald Trump and the way he is destroying the rule of law in the United States, the entire notion of accountability, the entire idea that rulers and powerful people should be held to account for their actions in a court of law. It's just like, it's something which they're going out of their way to destroy. And this is what I feel, this is really the danger here. Now, when confronted by those kind of rogue actors, I think we are far beyond the point where, we try to do diplomacy and we try to move them here, we try to get them over here and we try to meet with them and talk with them and work things out. It's not going to work. With these kind of actors, we're at the point where the only effective thing is to exclude them, to isolate them, and to sanction them. And really, certainly with Israel, Israel really needs to be expelled from the United Nations. I strongly believe that. And sanctioned by all member states. And, its chief enabler, the United States, bears a lot of responsibility for what's going on as well. So, we really need to, as has already been mentioned by many of the speakers, we really need to rethink our relations with the United States. And this notion that we're dependent on the United States economically and security-wise, it's based on a lot of assumptions which are pretty much crumbling away. So, we really need to rethink the entire international order and where we stand on all of these. But first and foremost, the principal thing for the Malaysian government to do would be to withdraw this invitation, and, as has already been said, to, make it very clear why. And also to use Malaysia's respected position in the international community to really to campaign for true justice for the Palestinian people, and to campaign in support of international law and the international order. That's really what needs to happen. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Professor. Your thoughtful analysis on how Malaysia might navigate the Trump visit really embarked us and explained the balance between symbolism and real impact, added an important perspective and an important value that enriched our discussion tonight. So our next question, I'll be moving to Brother Azri. Actually, this would be our final question. So I'll be opening also after this, we will be opening the floor for a Q&A session. If there are anyone from the people who are watching us on YouTube or on other different platforms, if they want to ask any question, please write it on the YouTube or on Facebook or whatever you want, so we can ask it. My final question for Brother Azri will be, this will be a the final question. If Malaysia proceed, Brother Azri, if Malaysia proceed with the Trump visit, how can Malaysian government use every second of this visit, from official statement to press conferences, to relentlessly steer the conversation about the ongoing genocide in Gaza?
It's a, it is a difficult question for me to ask on behalf of the government of Malaysia. I wouldn't know because I think the agenda of ASEAN uh, in November would be, of course, apart from concluding Malaysia's leadership, but we have normally economic pillars, security pillars, and social pillars. I'm not sure. I'm not very sure. But I think it would be wise for the government to send a clear message to Trump if, let's say, he were to come to our soil. And I mean, of course, even his presence and the presence of the president of China will overshadow the role of ASEAN in a way, because I think I, apart from what we see every day on issues affecting ASEAN, I think what we needed most now is the domestic, addressing the domestic concerns of ASEAN. There are so many other issues, including if let's say I look it from the point of human rights, issue of trans border concerns, such as human trafficking, uh, more socio-economic cohesion. These are the issues that we must actually address first. So I'm not very sure how the presence of Trump will actually help us to boost our own domestic concerns where we can actually do it without, his
Yes,
presence.
yes,
But I
that's right.
think we must make it very clear. Uh, we must make it very clear that we are a nation. We have to send the message to Trump that we are a nation bound by solemn international obligations. We are a state party to the 1948 Convention on the Prevention and Punishment of the Crime of Genocide. I've already mentioned it. And in fact, I think I would go to the extent of this is maybe one strategy before him coming. I mean, he is at the risk of if let's say we were to choose to apply the principles of the principle of universal jurisdiction, which Malaysia has actually endorsed in 2014 at the United Nations General Assembly. So and that is actually exposing President Trump. If let's say the Attorney General of Malaysia decides to invoke his power under sections 127 of the Criminal Procedure Code, where he can actually issue a certificate to. But the only problem is that we do not have a domestic law. But I think he is exposed to this. But I think the clear message that we need to send is that we are a nation bound by international law, and it is time that Trump must respect and he must go back to his country, having in his mind that well, Malaysia has made it very clear their position, the ASEAN position, in fact, and the position of many countries on Palestine, and they want action, which I think we do not need to wait until ASEAN summit. Well, the Prime Minister is leaving for Qatar on Monday to attend the emergency Arab Islamic Summit, which I do not know what the outcome would be. I mean, Malaysia can already make its position clear on that. But if let's say Malaysia want to leave something which is effective, which is something impactful on Donald Trump's mind, then it should be that Malaysia respects international law, and we expect President Donald Trump to respect our sovereignty and also our position on on these matters. And I think it's again it's difficult for me to say that because I do not know how the Malaysian government would want to maneuver on this matter. So far, like I said, that for me, I would remind that my government, the Malaysian government, we have the obligation to prevent genocide. Yeah, then we are one of the states that owe the international community as a whole, and the international community will look at us how we would make it clear that by having Trump, we are not actually entertaining or we are not actually endorsing his position as someone who is enabling genocide. So that would be a pretty difficult maneuvering to do on the part of the Malaysian government.
Yes. Thank you so much, Brother Azri. So I think we have one question from the floor. Question from Afreen. He's asking, I think it's essential to question the purpose and theme of ASEAN. It's essential to question the purpose and theme of ASEAN Meet 2025 itself, since it is coinciding with the Trump's arrival, especially when there was a genocide happening in Gaza. Do the value aligns? So maybe we can ask this to Prof. Nazari.
I think I will pass it on to Tian Chua to answer this question.
Yes.
Okay. Okay. Yeah. Tian,
With the mic.
Chua.
Okay. I'm mute. Okay. I think the tonight discussion we are quite clear. The issues is I mean diplomatic gesture sometimes is not that complicated. You know, people can say we're going to have a lot of side talk and all these things. Well, fine. Leaders will do it anyway. Discussion is going on. I mean, even US trying to host Hamas to bring in for discussion. I think that's all will be ongoing. The player of international strategies and all this. And I think that's not my main concern. The whole point is our gesture to tell Trump that your position is isolated. That is more important. Yeah, that's why I say it is issues that we must bring about. And again, I also do not only put hope into just about the Malaysian government or the Prime Minister Anwar Ibrahim to withdraw. But it is important that we take this opportunity for people to say, oh, in case what it comes, what do you want the Malaysian government to say? It's not my concern. I mean, to me, in case it comes, the important thing is we have to show to the world Malaysian people by the tens of thousands stand up against him, against the genocide and the war criminal activities that enabled by Trump. So I think that's more important. So I wouldn't want to put in too much effort to think about how we can lobby the government to make use of this opportunity for helping the Palestinian and all things. I think that is not my main concern. My concern is now we have 1 month. We have to organize. We have to show that Malaysian people are strongly in solidarity with the Palestinian, strongly in solidarity with all the oppressed nations in the world, and we're going to demonstrate it through the people's power when Trump arrives.
Yes. Thank you, Brother Chuan.
Yeah.
Yeah, Shua, thank you so much for this. And now we have another 2 questions, I think, so far. Okay, the next question, where does Malaysia stand in comparison to other countries like Spain? Also, what is the significance of the Prime Minister visit to Doha?
All right.
Okay, can I just quickly say that
Okay.
each country, I want to say that each country will do whatever within their ability. I don't want to say, yes, we are very appreciative of Spain doing this. But I also think that whatever Spain is doing also has limitation. In fact, to some extent, to be fair, some of the things that Malaysia do is much more progressive than Spain. even though Spain looks into have a lot in the highlight of the world. But what we really need to do is to measure ourselves. We have a tradition of doing certain things. We have achieved a certain result, and let's not destroy it by losing that. And we should continue to do that. So for me, Malaysian need not to talk about imitating Spain, but what we should do is using this ASEAN opportunity, using this to achieve our result.
Yes.
I want to
yes,
add my comment is that
yes, Prof.
Malaysia does not have any diplomatic and trade relation with Israel. Unlike Spain, Spain still has got diplomatic and trade relation with Israel and still continuing with the trade and diplomatic relation with Israel. But it's calling for the thing that recently the Spanish Prime Minister said that Israel should be boycotted from sporting events. Now, we should be saying this long time ago because we don't have any diplomatic relation and trade relation. We should be far ahead. And instead, Spain is saying that. We should be calling the international community saying we want to boycott the Olympic. If the Olympic Council still welcome Israel to participate in the Olympic, we will boycott other sporting events, the World Cup or whatever, if Israel is still inside there. So that's what Malaysia should be doing, because we are already showing to the world that we can survive, we do well, even though we don't have any diplomatic relation with Israel. So we should be saying this long time ago, right? Instead of Spain doing this, saying this. That's why I say sometimes what we are saying is our stance is not consistent, right? On the one hand, we say that we don't have any diplomatic relation with Israel, no trade relation with Israel. We do not allow any Israeli to come to Malaysia holding Israeli passport. But at the same time, we are very quiet when it comes to sanctioning Israel in international bodies like or international sports events. That's why we can be louder, and we are in a position to be louder actually compared to many other countries, but we are not capitalizing on that standing of ours in it as far as the issue of Palestine is concerned. That's my comment. Thank you.
Thank you, Prof. So our final question from the audience is, how can we mobilize tens of thousands of Malaysians to protest in front of the BMX office so that Anwar withdraw his invitation to Trump?
This one we'll leave it to Tian Chua, the master mobilizer. Master mobilizer.
Okay, let's I agree with the first part, but I don't think we should worry about the second part. Whether Anwar as a prime minister want to withdraw of it, that's a secondary. It's up to every political leaders must decide. If the current government decided to go ahead, then they have to face the consequence of how the people react after that. So that one is beyond my concern. I think the issues now is, let's all, I will urge all the different NGOs and different political party, put aside some of our petty differences, and then also put aside, you know, who want to be the leading force, come together. And I believe there are sufficient people agree with us. I agree that I think Malaysian, by and large, agree with our stand that we should reject Trump. It's a question of how to motivate Malaysian who are not so used to direct action, not so used to coming out in the street, to change our political mindset and come out to mobilize. And I think we have to work towards it, and we have to continue to work towards it. And again, my appeal is, this is not only for the sake of solidarity. This is not only for supporting Palestinians. This is about preserving and learning how do we exercise our democratic rights to defend our right to dissent, our right to speak freely, our right to mobilize and organize, which is guaranteed by our constitution. For half a century, 60 years, we are just celebrating our Malaysian Day, coming out 62 years. Even though that's been in the constitution, that we are very reluctant to utilize it. So it's time we use this opportunity to show appreciation to the freedom and the rights that enshrine in our constitution, come out to the street to prove that we are very concerned on defending our democratic right and our principle and our ethical, what's it called, standard. Yeah, thank you. Actually, I need to go. So yeah, I think that's my parting words.
Yes. Thank you, Mr. Chuan, Mr. Tian, and on behalf of the organizers, I think we have reached to the end of
Let
our
me leave
discussion
first,
today.
okay? Yeah.
We have reached to the end of our discussion today. On behalf of the organizers, I would like to extend my deepest gratitude and appreciation to all our distinguished panelists, Mr. Azril, Muhammad Amin, Prof. Saur Takahashi, Mr. Tian Shua, and Prof. Muhammad Nazari. Thank you so much for your sharing your insights, your expertise, your principles voiced tonight. Your contribution have shed light on the challenges and responsibilities that we face as Malaysian in responding to Trump visit, and more importantly, in standing firmly with justice and with Palestine. We truly appreciated your time, effort, and wisdom. Thank you so much.